Good evening, everyone. I am Dayan Telebangco, and together with me are Sokahel Relian, Montebon May, Delgado Clemens, and Albania Mary Bethany. So we are the Group 4. So our main topic for today is the meaning and relevance of history. So next slide, please. So first, we're talking about the meaning and relevance of history, which is um, we give importance the history, our history. So first is the meaning and relevance of history. It is the for the word history, it is the study of past events, people, and societies. It involves examining records, artifacts, and other sources that um, understand how human cultures and civilizations have evolved over time. So, by studying this history, kay, we can gain insights into how past societies functioned and how major events and movements shaped the world, and how the legacies of these events influence the present and our future. So in traditional understanding of history, it is the study of the past, as what I have said a while ago, because um, for the word history, it is the past. So in chronological record of significant events, often including an explanation of their causes. So, in the traditional understanding of history sees it as a chronological record of significant events. So, it is emphasizing the actions of a notable figures and major occurrences like wars and revolution. So it relies heavily on written records and often focuses on the narrative Western civilizations. So in this approach, the traditional understanding, it aims to provide a clear and linear account of the past. So it is highlighting the progress and the key milestone of human development. So next slide, please. So in modern understanding, it came from Greek word historia. So that means knowledge acquired through inquiry or investigation. And also the sources are oral traditions in forms of epics, songs, artifacts, architecture, memory, and etc. So in this modern understanding of the history is more inclusive of um, multifaceted. It emphasizes and it emphasizes a diverse range of perspective, including those of everyday people, marginalized groups, and non-research societies. So it also considered that social, economic, and cultural factors, not just political events and notable figures. So this approach about the modern understanding it uses various causes and um, interdisciplinary methods to create a more comprehensive and nuanced picture of the past. So we see the when we see the picture of the past, we can utilize or understand that it is a modern. So next slide, please. And according to Zeus Salazar, no, he says that ang kasaysayan ay salaysay na may saysay na sinasalaysayang salinghali. So, what does it mean? No? Ah, ang kasaysayan daw kay mao ang istorya nga na ay tumong or kahulugan alang sa mga kaliwatan or kaigsuunan, no, nga nagpaabot or nagstorya. So, and that is according to Zayas Salazar. So, next slide please. So, we're going to talk about the Pantayong Pananaw. So, in according to Salazar 1974. So, this is the picture or the tagapagpadala or tatanggap or kultura. So, in kuan pa in messenger and the receiver. So, muna siya. So, next slide please. So, here in division of history, first is the prehistory. It is a period where no written records exist or when the writings of people were not preserved and analyzed through fossils and artifacts by archaeologists and anthropologists. So, in this prehistory, it refers to the period of human history before the invention of writing systems, and recorded history. So, in this era spans from the earliest human ancestors to the advent of written records and includes the Stone Age, during which early humans developed tools and learned to control fire. So, free history is the kay nag-study na siya through archaeology, anthropology, and other scientific methods of to understand early human life. Not only early human life, but also culture and societal development based on artifacts, fossils, and other physical evidence. So that is a prehistory. So next, we're going, yes. So this one. So this is what the story of prehistory. So this is kanang gikan daw ta diri unggoy. Pero di na siya tinuod ha. Yang istorya ra na. So next slide please. Next is the history. Periods when man started to write and record events using a system of writing and analyze through wood, carves, engraved metals, written papyrus, written paper. So, mo na siya, sa history, kay diri na siya nag-start na which human or the man started to invent how to write and the records, the events na unsay mahitabo. So, na siyang isulat or kanang para masaysay pa in the future. So muna siya mo nang makita na nato karon kung unsa ang nakasulat sa mga past and history. So next slide please. Yes, and this one we don't understand the sa ilahang na written before or sa ilahang language, but na sila at least nakakuan sila ba, nakaproduce sila sa ilang mga history. So, next slide. So, it is, in this area, it is studied by historians. Next slide, please. So, so the rule of historians is to look at the available sources and select the most relevant for history and subject of study. It is also to organize the past that is being created and also to seek for the meaning of recovering the past to let the people see the continuing relevance of memories or historical understanding. So they gave an importance jud sa ilahang mga kanang kaagi bitaw before. So that's why na ilag yung gibuhatan or ilag yung gihatagan og kanang efforts na to kanang mahatagan og meaning ba para nga sa ato karon is makita na to ang unsay history nila before sa ilang mga past. So yes, next slide please. So this is the history of a social science. They have kung sa kahoy pa, they have roots, ba? So it divided, the science is divided into is one, two, the natural and the social. No, in the given in the natural kay they have a physical and biological. Physical, it is para siya karang kana bitawng ang unod niya kay is about physics and chemistry. And in biological kay they have zoology and botany. Well, I didn't kanang kuan jud sa about ani nga word na kay wala ka kuan pud ani. Karon pa ko encounter ani siya. So in next is the social. So they have a lot of kuan siya, no? They have history, economics, political science, and so sociology, anthropology, philosophy, geography, and psychology. So that's the kuan of about social. So next slide please. So here in historiography, the writings of history or historical writings, it is based on a critical examination of sources. It the selection of particular details from authentic materials in those sources and the synthesis of those details into a narrative. And it is also done through historical research with the aid of historical methodology. So, in this historiography, it is the study of how history now is written and the methods of historian used to interpret and present historical events. And also it involves examining the different perspectives, interpretations, and bases that historians bring to their work, as well as the evolution of historical writing over time. And that's why that the historiography also explores that sources historians use, the context is in which they write, and the theoretical framework that influence their field helps us understand not just the what happened in history, but how um, our understanding of those events has been shaped and constructed. So that is all about the historiography, no, which is the nag-give jud sila og kanang kuan para ma-compare sila sa ato na dili ta jud ta dapat magkuan kay as we know na sa ilhang past or sa past na ato ang na-studyhan. So next slide please. So this one in historiography kanang kuan is it is choosing a topic, looking for a data through historical sources, determining the data as a primary or secondary source, and analyze the data through historical criticisms, writing the entire narratives. So, and also the importance of history is to unite a nation, to legitimize our regime, and forge a sense of collective identity through collective memory. So, and to make sense of the present, to not repeat mistakes of the past, to inspire people to keep their good practices to move forward. So, the history so these are the importance of history, no, na we can learn, no, from their situation of the past, and kanang dili na nato mausab ang ilang mga mistakes. So if tinuod na ita nga nag-learn is dili na jud nato to sila makuan ang ilang mga mistake, dili na ma-repeat. So it inspires us people nowadays. So need to move on. So next slide please. So this is the historical time frame of the Philippines. Now from the 9,000 or 7,000 of BCE, so to up till to now, so in 24th century or in the 24th century. So this is the historical time frame of from the past and from um the latest, no? So next slide. And that would be my topic, and I will give the floor to Miss Rillian Sokahel. Thank you. Sorry, ako pa din. Okay, to continue. So, in distinction of primary and secondary sources, which is the external and the internal criticism.
So, hello everyone. I am Ryan Pismahel and I am the second reporter. So, we'll be discussing the distinction of primary and secondary sources, as well as the external and internal criticism. So, we have here first the primary sources. It is produced at the same time as the event being studied. So, it includes documents or artifacts created by a witness or participant of the event. So, an example here is we have here the first-hand testimony and eyewitness accounts. So for the primary sources, it may include diaries, letters, interviews, photographs, and newspaper. So this is an so these are the examples of the primary sources. So we have here written sources, unwritten sources, and these are the 6 points of inquiries to evaluate primary sources by Garadhan 1950. So first, the date. So when was it produced? Second, localization or where did it originate? Third one is the authorship or who wrote it. Next is analysis. What pre-existing materials serve as a basis for its production? The fifth one is the integrity or what was its original form. And number six, the exclusion. What pre-existing materials serve as a basis for its production? And number seven is the content. So for the secondary sources, so it analyzes a scholarly question and often use primary sources as evidence. So in secondary sources, these include books, theses, dissertations, journals, magazines, knowledge of historians, and and lastly, the secondary sources are written few years after the exact time of the event. So for the comparison, primary source B and primary source C is equivalent to secondary source. Excuse me. So these are the examples of secondary sources. And so let us skip na lang this one now. So let's see. Okay. So So in primary and secondary sources, it should be evaluated its validity and credibility by asking these questions. So number one, how did the author know about the given details, and was the author present at the time? Second, where did the information come from, or is it a personal experience, an eyewitness account, and etc. And lastly, did the author conclude based on a single or multiple source? And in terms of historical reliability, the primary source is the closer the date of creation, the more reliable one. And for the secondary source, the more recent, the more reliable one. So now let's have the two types of historical criticism. The first one is the external criticism. So it is the verification of authenticity by examining physical characteristics and consistency with the historical characteristics of the time when it was produced and materials used. So a document is examined, for example, to include the quality of the paper, the type of ink, the language, the words used in the material. So, so we can ask these following questions, no? So when it was written, where it was written, who was the author, why did it survive, what were the materials used, and where the words used were being used those times. So the second one is the internal criticism. So it looks at the truthfulness and the factuality of the evidence by looking at the author of the source, its context, the agenda behind its creation. So it looks at the content of the source and examines the circumstance of its production. So when we say internal criticism, it examines the truthfulness and accuracy of the primary source or evidence. So it looks into the content of the source and examines its truthfulness and factuality by looking into the author's source, its context, the knowledge which inform it, and its intended purposes, among others. So we can ask the following questions in the internal criticism. So why was it written by eyewitness or not? Why was it written? Is there consistency? What are the connotations? What is the literal meaning? And what is the meaning of the context? So these are the seven factors in evaluating through internal criticism by Howell and Prevenier 2001. So first one is genealogy of the document. Second is genesis of the document. Third, originality of the document. Number four, interpretation of the document. Number five, authorial authority of the document. Six is competence of the observer. And lastly, trustworthiness of the observer. So, Rizal did not write sa aking mga kabata. So, the claim that Jose Rizal did not write the poem sa aking mga kabata has been a subject of debate among scholars. Yes. So, there is no manuscript of sa aking mga kabata in Rizal's handwriting. So, the poem, no, first appeared in print long after his death with no document connection to Rizal during his lifetime. So this so in October 12, 1886, this is a letter to Pasiano. So I lack many words, for example, for the word preheat or liberty, and the Tagalog word kaligtasan cannot be used because this means that formerly he was in some prison, slavery, and etc. So so this is the letter to Pasiano. So So Roman Rook, forger of Philippine history. So Roman Rook or Ruke, no? Kay kay it is often cited in relation to the disputed authorship of Saking Mga Kabata. So some scholars argue that Ruke played a role in the poem's questionable attribution to Jose Rizal. So the poem's authenticity has been a subject of debate, with some historians suggesting that Ruke or others have may forged or misattributed it. So we have here Jose Marco, the greatest conman of the Philippine history. So Jose E. Marco is often referred to as one of the greatest conmen in the Philippine history due to his role in creating a number of historical forgeries that misled historians for decades. So William Henry Scott's findings. So I mean these are the findings of William Henry Scott. So one of his findings now is the alleged writer Father Jose Maria Pavon was not in the Philippines in 1838 or 1839. Second, the alleged writer dedicated a book that contains the code to King of Spain in 1838, but Spain did not have a king between 1833 to 1974. And lastly, and his last finding is that the writer mentioned that there were microbes in the month of November in the country, which is in 19 which is in 1838, but the terms microbes was first used in 1878. So we have here the La Loba Negra, or the Black She Wolf, by Father Burgos, which is translated by Mr. Hilario A. Lee. So the La Loba Negra is often mistakenly attributed to Father Jose Burgos, which is one of the three Filipino priests known as the Comparsa who were executed by Spanish authorities in 1872. However, the true authorship of La Loba Negra remains a subject of scholarly debate. So yes, so so it is suggested readings for chapter one. Ay, Joe. So these are the suggested readings for chapter one. So we have here Understanding History, a premiere of historical method in 1969 by Louis Gottschalk. And we have here the Reliable Source and Introduction to Historical Methods 2001 by Martha Howard. So we have here the quote, "Our misfortunes are our own fault. Let us blame nobody else for them." So this quote, no, it reflects a philosophy of personal responsibility and accountability. So but as long as we continue to proclaim, head held high and chest bared, the right to a life, their own inhuman society, and to guarantee it with their sacrifices, with their very blood if necessary. So why give them independence? What is the use of independence if the slaves of today will become the tyrants of tomorrow? And no doubt they will, because whoever submits to tyranny loves it. So this is by Padre Florentino in El Filibusterismo in 1891. Okay, so now let's tackle the content and the contextual analysis of selected primary sources. So for chapter 2, content and contextual analysis of selected sources, these are um, the primary sources, no? So we have here the First Voyage Around the World by Antonio Pigafetta, Customs of the Tagalogs by Fray Juan de Plasencia, Katipunan by Emilio Jacinto, Mga Gunita ng Himagsikan by Emilio Aguinaldo, and we have Acta de la Proclamation de la Independencia del Pueblo Filipino by Ambrosio Bautista. And we have here Philippine cartoons by A Political Caricature of the American Era by Alfred McCoy and Alfredo Roses. Filipino Grievances Against Governor Wood by Commission Independence. President Corazon Aquino's speech before the U.S. Congress in September 1896. The Raiders of the Sulu Sea, which is a film. And lastly, we have the works of Luna and Amarsola paintings. So later on, we'll be discussing it one by one. So let us first define what is content analysis. So when you say content analysis, it is the identification of the historical importance of the text. So it is a research method for studying documents and communication artifacts, which can be a text of various formats, pictures, audio, or video. So in content analysis, we should have the title of the primary source, next is the background or biography of the authors, author or authors, including these primary sources, and lastly, the highlight of its context. So this is the format. So next is the contextual analysis. So it is the examination of author's main argument or point of view. So this involves examining the time period in which the text was written and the context in which it was written. So for the contextual analysis, we should write the title of the primary source, the main argument, the bias, and lastly the importance in understanding Philippine history. So now let us discuss the first voyage around the world, or the premier viaje in Torno del Globo. So the document, no, so this document, it reveals the several insights not just in the character of the Philippine during pre-colonial period, but also on how the fresh eyes of the European regard deeply unfamiliar terrain, environment, people, and culture. So the first voyage around the world is also known as the Magellan Elcano circumnavigation. So it refers to the first recorded journey to circumnavigate the globe, which led initially by Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and completed by Spanish navigator Juan Sebastian Elcano. So this historic expedition took place from 1591 to 1522, or August 10th 1591 to September 6, 1522, and had significant implications for global exploration and understanding of the world's geography. Okay, so for the historical background, it was written by Antonio Pigafetta in one of the five ships that first circumnavigate the world. So it covers the time when Ferdinand Magellan's fleet Armada de Molacca started the voyage in 1591 until it was successfully went back to the Spain. So who is Antonio Pigafetta? So Antonio Pigafetta is an Italian scholar and explorer from the Republic of Venice. So he traveled with the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his crew by order of the King Charles I of Spain on their voyage around the world. So the copies of this account was presented by Pigafetta to Pope Clement the 7th and King Francis the 1st mothers and etc. So his original diary was lost and not known in what language it was written. And it survived in four manuscript versions. The first one is the Italian, who is the Carlo Amorete, and the three French. Okay, so in March 17, 1521, or originally March 16, 1521, it is where the arrival in Zamal or the Samar, particularly in the island of Humuno or the Humonhod. So Magellan called it Aquada dalle Boni Signali, which means the watering place of God signs. And the district was called Las Islas de San Lazaro or the island of Saint Lazarus. Okay, so in October 1520, the expedition navigated through the strait at the southern tip of South America, which was later named the Strait of Magellan. So this is the Magellan route. As you can see, the red line, and the blue one is the Ilocano route. So, okay. So, in March 30, originally March 29, umangkla ang barko namin sa isla ng Mazua malapit sa bahay ng raha nito or Raha Siago at umakyat ng barko ang Raha at sila Magellan kung saan sila ay napalitan ng regalo. Nag-almusal at ipinasyal ni Magellan ang Raha sa paligid ng kanyang barko at ipinakita ang kanyang mga armas. Gayun din ako at isang kasama ay sumama sa Raha at sa Balanghay kami ay pinakain ng baboy, pinainom ng alak at pinakita ng hari ang kanilang palasyo at nagpakain pa. So this is what happens on March 30. So in March 31, originally March 30, bumalik kami sa aming mga barko kasama ang kapatid ng raha ng Mazwa, ang raha ng Butuan, kalaga na si Colombo, ang pinakamaayos na lalaking nakita namin. Okay, so in April 1, 1521, originally March 31, this is where the first Mass in the Philippines was happened in Mazwa. So it was attended by Magellan, Raha Colombo, Raha Swagu or Sway, and local islands. So Magellan ordered the chaplain to preside a mass by the shore. So the king sent two dead pigs and attended the mass with the other kings. So after the mass, Magellan ordered the cross be brought with the nails and crown in place. Okay, so in April 8, 1521, Magellan and his men to pay tribute to them, but told his translator Enrique that they are working for King and Spain and threatened him awar. So Magellan and his men reached the port of Cebu, which is the largest and the richest of the islands, with the help of Raha Colombo. So the king of Cebu, who is Raha Humabo, demanded that they pay tribute as it was customary, but Magellan refused. And then Magellan said that he was the captain himself and thus would not pay tribute to other king. Okay, so in April 15, 1521, or originally April 14. So these were they held a mass on Humabon's place, were attended by 800 local members. And then Magellan gave Hara Humamay an image of Santo Niño, and Humabon became Carlos, and Humamay became Juana. So in April 27, 1521, originally on April 26, Rahazula told Magellan that Matans or Mactan chieftain Kilapulapu or Lapu-Lapu refused to obey the king of Spain. And then Zula requested Magellan to send him only one boatload of men to fight Kilap Kilapulapu, but Magellan. And on April 28, 1521, 60 of Magellan's men set out armed with corslets and helmets, and 20 to 30 balanhais loaded by Rao Mabon's men went to Matan to attack Kilapulapu. The local islanders had lances of bamboo and stakes hardened with fire. And this is when the Battle of Mactan happened. So, should I read this one? So let us just skip now. So this is just a summary of what I have read a while ago. So for the other contents of Pidjafet's manuscript, so we have here the lifestyle of early Filipinos in Visayas, the first vocabulary of Visayan words ever penned by a European, description of early Visayan music, evidence that the world is round, and lastly, the rediscovery of Pacific Ocean. So, redemption, presupone, virtud sa sacrificio amor, which means redemption presuppose virtue, sacrifice, and love. So, by Padre Florentino in El Filibusterismo, 1891. So, I will now give the floor to Miss May Montebon to discuss the Cartilla ng Katipunan. Thank you so much.
So good evening, everyone. So I am the third reporter, and I'll be tackle about the Kartilya ng Katipunan. So before I will be start the topic, so I'll just read the saying of Emilio Jacinto, I mean. So ang buhay na hindi ginugugol sa isang malaki at banal na kadahilan ay kahoy o puno na walang lilim, kundi man damang makamandag. Sumoto siya ang saying of Emilio Jacinto. So, is the next time. So, the historical background of Emilio Jacinto. So, it is written by Emilio Jacinto in 1896, codified document listing the duties and responsibilities of every Katipunan member. So, it is also chosen by Bonifacio instead of his katong kulang gagawin ng mga ZLYB or Decalogo. Let's go next now. So it was influenced by Age of Enlightenment, French Revolution, Masonry, propaganda movement, La Liga Filipina. This is the example of, this is the pictures of what happening of the writing of Emilio Jacinto. So the first one is ang kabuhayang. This is the first one that I read earlier, the saying of Emilio Jacinto. So the next one is ang gawang magaling na nabubuhat sa pagpipitas sa sarili at hindi sa talagang nasang gumawa ng kagalingan ay di kabaitan. The next is ang tunay na kabanalan ay ang pagkakawang gawa, ang pag-ibig sa kapwa at isukat ang bawat kilos, gawat, pangungusap sa talagang katuwiran. And last is di maitim man at maputi ang kulay ng balat, lahat ng tao ay magkapantay. Mangyayari ang isang higtan sa dunong, sa yaman, sa ganda, ngunit di mahigitan sa pagkakatao. Next. Ang may mataas na kalooban, inuuna ang puri sa pagpipita sa sarili. Ang may hamak na kalooban, inuuna ang pagpipita sa sarili sa puri. Number 6 is, sa taong mahiya, salita'y panunumpa. Number 7, huwag mong sasayangin ang panahon. Ang yamang nawalay magyayaring magbalik, ngunit panahong nagdaan ay di na muli pang magdadaanan. Number 8 is ipagtanggol mo ang inaapi at kabakahin ang umaapi. Next, ang taong matalino ang may pag-iingat sa bawat sasabihin at matutong ipaglihim ang bawat ipaglilihim. Number 10, sa daang matinik ng kabuhayan, lalaki ay siyang pagnugot ng asawa at mga anak. Kung ang umaakay ay tungo sa sama, ang pagpatutunguhan ng inaaakay ay kasamaan din. Number 11, ang babae ay huwag mong tignang isang bagay na nalibangan lamang, kundi isang katuwang at karamay sa mga kahirapan nitong kabuhayan. Gamitin mo ang buong pagpitagan ang kanyang kahinaan at alahanin ang inang pinagbuhat ngiwit sa iyong kasanggulan. Number 12 is, ang di mo ibig na gawin sa asawa mo, anak at kapatid, ay huwag mong gawin sa asawa, anak at kapatid ng iba. Ang kamahalan ng tao'y wala sa pagkahari, wala sa tangos ng ilong at puti na mukha, wala sa pagpakaparing kahalili ng Diyos, wala sa mataas na kalagayan sa balat ng lupa, wagas at tunay na mahal na tao, kahit laking gubat at walang nababatid kundi ang sariling wika. Yaong may magandang asal, may isang pangungusap, may dangal at puri, yaong di nagpapaapi at nakikiapi, yaong marunong magdamdam at marunong luminghap sa bayang tinubuan. And number 14 is paglaganap ng mga aral na ito at magningning na sumisikat ang araw ng mahal na kalayaan sa buga ng matamis niyang liwanag, ang nagkaisang magkalahit magkakapatid ng ligaya ng walang katapusan. Ang mga ginugol na buhay, pagod at mga tiniis na kahirapay labis ng matumbasan. Kung lahat ng ito'y matarok na ang nag-iibig pumasok at inakala niyang matutupad ang mga tungkulin, maitatala ang kanyang ninanasa sa kasunod na mga nito. So, this is saying of Prof. Xiao Chua. Ang kasaysayan ay hindi basta-basta kwento. Meron itong metodo. Magtanong, mag-imbestiga, at magkumpara. Dapat sa atong life, if dapat mag-search or mangutana kung si mga panghitabo para daghantag knowledge or mga may bawaan. Next. So the next one is mga gunita ng himagsikan. Next. So, disconnect. So the following contents of mga gunita ng himagsikan were from the 6th chapter of Nick Joaquin's A Question of Heroes. This is the first book that he written. Next. So Aguinaldo had a rich family, which is his father is his family is Carlos Aguinaldo and Trinidad family. So Aguinaldo studied at Colegio de San Juan de Letran but stopped because of father's death. And Aguinaldo became Kabiza de Barangay of Binakayan on 1895 because of Maura law. So Aguinaldo became the first Kapitan Municipal of Cavite Video or in Kawit. This connects. So this. So he became successful nan. So the Katipunan in Cavite split into two. The Magdalo or the pro Aguinaldo or the Magdiwang, the pro Bonifacio. So Bonifacio wanted to solve the rivalry in a December 1896 meeting in Imus, resulted into decision to dissolve the Katipunan and to have a formal election for the new revolution government. So Bonifacio resolved para kuan na sad og new revolutionary government. Let's go next. So Aguinaldo agreed to be a peace pact in Biak na Bato, San Miguel, Bulacan with the Spaniards that led his exile to Hong Kong in 1897. So so I will give the floor to the next reporter.
Thank you, Miss May. Good evening, everyone. I am Natalie, and I'll be discussing with you the Acta de la Proclamación de la Independencia del Pueblo Filipino, or the Proclamation of the Philippine Independence. So, please, next slide. So, the Proclamation of the Philippine Independence was on June 12, 1898. So, that is our Independence Day. It was by General Emilio Aguinaldo, and it was done at Kawit, Cavite. So during that time, the Philippine flag was officially hoisted to the public, or meaning it was officially viewed. So the flag that we see nowadays was first seen by the public on June 12, 1898, during the proclamation of the Philippine independence. So during that time, our flag was designed by Emilio Aguinaldo, and it was made in Hong Kong by Marcela Agoncillo, Lorenzo Agoncillo, and Delfina Herbosa. So during that time, there was a Marcha Filipina Magdalo. So Marcha Filipina Magdalo performed the national anthem, composed by Julian Felipe. So please, next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So that is in Kawit Cavite. So this letter, the proclamation of Philippine independence. So as you can see it in the picture, it is written in Spanish. So that Spanish letter is a short 2,000 written word document. So that was signed by 98 people, including the United States officer who witnessed the proclamation. So that proclamation, or that paper, or the documentation itself is currently housed at the National Library of the Philippines. It is not publicly displayed, but you can view it with the permission of the National Library of the Philippines. So what made the people before fought for the independence of our country? It is because of the abuses and inequalities of the colonizers. So the abuses of the civil guards, the unequal protection of the law by the Filipinos and Spaniards, and there was an unjust deportation, which means there was baseless decisions without proper hearing. So that document itself, the Declaration or the Proclamation of the Philippine Independence, proves to us that our country and ourselves were freed by the colonizers, and that implies that we have the rights to live without inequalities, without any hindrances. And that implies that we should fight for ourselves and for our country. So that so please next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so that flag you see in the picture was the first flag that was first hoisted in the public during the proclamation of the Philippine independence. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. So that picture showed the time when people were really happy about getting the independence of our country. So that was in June 12, 1898. So please, next slide. So now let's go to the Philippine cartoons or the political caricature of the American era or Alfred McCoy's political caricature. So when we say caricature, it came from a word carico or caricare, Italian word, which means to lead or to exaggerate. So it it is solely sometimes means for entertainment or most of the time for political purpose. So in modern days, it is what we call as the editorial cartoon, the one that we see on newspapers and the editorial part. We can see cartoon, editorial cartooning or caricature drawings there that exposes the opinion of the cartoonist towards a certain event or a certain topic or situation. Please, next slide. So, next slide, please. So, now let's talk about the historical background of Alfred McCoy. So, those political caricatures were written by Alfred McCoy and Alfredo Roses. American period in the Philippines provided leeway in the publication of independent newspapers but in strict manner. The censorship loosened when civil government was established in 1901. Please, next slide. Many Filipino artists made use of cartoons as political commentaries to expose the ills of American colonial government. McCoy provided an analysis of the issues during American period through cartoons, and Roses complied these cartoons on a book. So during American, when Philippines was colonized by the Americans, Alfred McCoy used the way of caricature to share his opinions on the mga pananakop ng mga Amerikano. And Roses complied these cartoons in a book, and now we will see it in the next slide. Next slide, please. So that is one of Alfred McCoy's caricature, the Bagong Kusog, that one. So please, next slide. So examples is the Lipag Kalabaw, Tagalog and Spanish newspapers with satiric cartoons. We have El Renacimiento. It, this caricature campaigned for the right of free press. La Vanguardia that survived until World War II and one of the Manila's leading newspapers. So please, next slide. So that drawing that you see in the picture is also one of Alfred McCoy's caricatures. So all of Alfred McCoy's caricature um, solely made for political purpose. So his caricatures are depicting his opinions towards the Americans' way of colonizing our country before. So please, next slide. So I think that would be all, and I will now give the floor to the next reporter.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bethany. So now we will move on to the next topic, which is the President Corazon Aquino speech before the U.S. Congress on September 18, 1986. So next slide, please. So now I will not read or I will not provide the very long speech of Corazon Aquino, but rather have the summarized of Corazon Aquino's speech. So here, so in his, I mean, in her, on her speech, she arguably cemented the legitimacy of the EDSA EDSA government in the international arena. Second is the speech talks of her family background, especially her relationship with her late husband. And third, she talked at the length about Ninoy's toil and suffering at the hands of the dictatorship that he resisted. And next, ideology are the principles of the new democratic government. So she also was able balik sa dams, to draw a sharp contrast between the government and of her predecessor by expressing her commitment to a democratic constitution drafted by an independent commission. So in historical background, pretend by President Aquino as she was invited by the U.S. Congress to convene a joint meeting for the purposes of hearing an address from a foreign leader. And next, the speech was delivered 7 months after being sworn into the office under revolutionary government. Next slide, please, Tams. So the speech actually targeted two goals, which are the first to express gratitude towards U.S. for helping Filipinos regain freedom from Marcos dictatorships. Because on her speech, she claimed that such constitutions upholds and adheres to the rights and liberty of the Filipino people. And next, she also hoisted as the reconciliatory agent after more than 2 decades of polarizing our authoritarian politics, which also talks about the Marcoses. So also in her speech, she revealed certain parallelism between her and Marcos government. So the second goal that she targeted on her speech is to seek help from the US in restoring government, considering her decisions to honor the foreign debts of the Philippines incurred during Marcos administration. So next slide, please. So that was Cory. Next topic. So next topic, the Raiders of the Sulu Sea. So next, please. Next slide, please. So historical background of the topic Raiders of the Sulu Sea. First, this is a documentary produced by Oak 3 Films in 2018 in co-production agreement with the Media Authority of Singapore and Korean Broadcasting Commission. Again, this is a film produced by at least 4 to 5 authors. So in this topic, it depicts the slave raiding activities by Balanging, Samal or Ilanon and Tausug tribes under the command of the Sultans of Sulu. Next slide. So it also shows the moral resistance to the Spanish and American colonial governments in Mindanao. So the raids through the use of balanghay in the coastal areas of Spanish settlements were sanctioned by the sultans to retaliate against the colonizers. So balanghay is a kanang thing ganina ilang gisakyan. And next is the Spanish and American wars against Moors led the Christian Muslim conflict in the country. Next slide, please. So this was a documentary performance from